What's up everyone, and welcome back. Today feels a little different because Meta just dropped their latest firmware update for the Ray-Ban. Meta Smart Glasses firmware version 21, and this one quietly changes more than it first appears. At first glance, it looks like just another update on a long list. But once you slow down and really read what's included here, something interesting starts to happen. Some of these updates are small quality of life changes. Others hint at how Meta actually expects people to use these glasses day to day. And a few of them raise some serious questions about where this product already stands right now. Not in the future, not in theory. But today, before we get deep into it, I want to be very clear about something. I just released a real-world testing video focused entirely on Meta AI and how it behaves in everyday situations. If you haven't seen that yet, it's still extremely relevant because this firmware update doesn't replace what the glasses already do, it builds on it. So if you're curious how these glasses perform when things don't go perfectly, when you're walking, traveling, or surrounded by noise, you'll definitely want to watch that too. But right now, this video is about what changed with firmware 21, what's officially been added, and why some of these additions feel more important than they first sound. Quick favor before we jump in. If you're enjoying these deep dives and real-world breakdowns, hitting subscribe really helps the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, but it tells YouTube that these kinds of honest, long-term tech reviews are worth showing to more people. Alright, let's get into it. Because this update starts in a deceptively simple place. One of the first additions in firmware 21 is a new Find Device feature. And no, this is not Apple's Find My, and it's important to understand that difference right away. This doesn't magically track your glasses across the world. Instead, the Meta AI app now remembers the last location where your phone successfully connected to the glasses. That might sound basic, but think about real life for a second. How many times do you take your glasses off at a cafe, a friend's house, a hotel room, or even your own car, only to realize later that you don't remember exactly where you put them? This feature doesn't promise miracles, but it gives you a starting point. And sometimes that's all you need. It quietly turns a they're gone moment into a wait, I know where to look. Now here's where things get more interesting. Firmware 21 introduces a brand new camera mode called Hyperlapse. And this is one of those features that sounds exciting on paper, but immediately makes you wonder how it actually behaves when it's mounted on your face. Hyperlapse lets you capture extended moments, up to 30 minutes hands-free, then compress that time into a smooth, sped-up video clip. Meta describes it with examples like walking through a botanical garden, crossing a historic bridge, running, or biking, and on the surface that makes sense. These glasses already excel at capturing life as you see it. But here's the real question that immediately comes to mind. What happens when you move your head naturally? When you walk, you don't move like a camera on a tripod. You look left, right, down, up sometimes, all within seconds. Your brain smooths that motion out in real life, but a camera doesn't always see the world the same way. So while the idea of a hands-free hyperlapse sounds incredible, especially for travel or city exploration, there's this quiet suspense sitting underneath it. Does it feel cinematic or does it feel chaotic? That's something I'll be testing in a follow-up video, because this is one of those features where real-world usage matters more than marketing descriptions. To start hyperlapse, you simply say, "Hey Meta, start Hyperlapse." No buttons, no app navigation, no menus. And that alone tells us something important. Meta is clearly leaning harder into voice-first control. This isn't a feature buried inside settings, you activate it naturally, the same way you'd ask someone next to you to start recording. The bigger question though is what happens when you stop. Does the camera seamlessly return to standard recording mode? Do you need to explicitly tell it to stop? Based on how existing recording modes work, it's likely a simple voice-driven start and stop. But again, this is exactly why real-world testing matters. Right alongside Hyperlapse, Meta also introduces a new hands-free slow-motion recording mode. And this is where things get intriguing because the wording matters. The update says you can say, "Hey Meta, start slow motion," and record up to 1 minute of slow-motion footage. This feature is available on Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 and supported Oakley Meta models. Gen 1 users don't get this, and that's an important detail. We're officially at the point where certain camera features are now Gen 2 only. It's not dramatic, but it is definitive. What's especially curious here is the phrase, enhanced dramatic effect. That could mean a lot of things, but without testing, there's no assumption to make. The safe, confirmed fact is this. Slow motion recording now exists as a hands-free option, activated by voice, with a 1-minute recording limit. Whether it behaves like traditional high frame rate slow motion or applies variable speed like some smartphone cameras is something we can only confirm through actual use. But even without knowing that yet, this addition alone expands how these glasses can capture movement, especially moments you don't want to miss while fumbling for your phone. Now, just when you think this update is mostly about flashy camera modes, Meta quietly adds something that could affect almost every video you take: adjustable stabilization. These glasses already include built-in video stabilization. And if you've used them while walking, you know how important that is. Humans naturally bob when they walk way more than we realize. Our brains compensate, but cameras don't. Firmware 21, you can now control how much stabilization is applied, or let the system auto-select it for you. This is subtle, but powerful. Stabilization almost always works by cropping into the image slightly. More stabilization usually means more crop. Less stabilization can mean a wider field of view, but also more visible movement. Having control over that trade-off gives creators more say in how their footage looks. And the fact that it's adjustable directly in the device settings tells me Meta expects users to care about this level of detail now. These glasses aren't just point and record anymore. They're quietly becoming configurable tools. Right when you're processing all of that, the update shifts gears again, this time into sharing. Firmware 21 expands video sharing to Instagram and Facebook stories, but with a twist. Instead of needing to plan your post ahead of time, you can now retrospectively share your most recent video by saying something like, "Hey Meta, share last video to Instagram." There's a 15-second limit, which matches story formats, but the important part here is flexibility. You capture first, decide later. That might not sound revolutionary, but in real life that changes how spontaneous content feels. And that's where I'm going to pause for now, because the next section moves into fitness integrations, music behavior, and voice shortcuts, and that's where this update really starts to raise eyebrows. Now, just when it feels like Firmware 21 is mostly about creators and casual recording, the update quietly pivots towards something much bigger: fitness and performance tracking. And this is where you start to realize that Meta isn't treating these glasses as just a camera or just headphones anymore. They're positioning them as a companion device that sits on your face, while other devices do the heavy lifting. The first big addition here is athlete intelligence. And before that name scares anyone off, let's break it down in plain language. This feature works by connecting the Ray-Ban Meta glasses to fitness platforms like Garmin, Strava, Apple Health, and now Google Health Connect, which is a new addition in this update. The glasses themselves are not suddenly becoming fitness trackers. They're not tracking heart rate or counting steps on their own. Instead, they're pulling in data from devices you already use, like a Garmin watch, and then letting Meta AI talk to you about that data. So imagine this scenario. You finish a run. Your Garmin already knows your distance, pace, time, and heart rate. With Firmware 21, you can now ask Meta AI questions about that workout using your glasses. Things like how far you ran last week, what your pace was on your last run, or how today compares to yesterday. That information already exists in your fitness ecosystem, but now it's accessible hands-free, spoken into your ear without pulling out your phone. It's subtle, but it changes how frictionless that information feels. And then there's auto capture. This is where things start to feel quietly powerful. With auto capture enabled, your glasses can automatically capture short video clips based on workout milestones and stats. Those clips can then have fitness stats overlaid on them and shared to platforms like Strava, Facebook, or Instagram. It's not about tracking fitness, it's about documenting it. And right now, Meta is being very careful about how this rolls out. The update notes that this feature is gradually expanding to other glasses, which strongly suggests it may appear first or perform best on sport-oriented Oakley Meta models. But the direction is clear. The glasses are becoming storytellers for your activities, not trackers themselves. Then there's Garmin workout creation, which again reinforces how deep this Garmin partnership is becoming. If you have a supported Garmin device and the latest Meta AI app, you can now create custom workouts using your voice. That means you can say something like creating a 5-mile run or a 1-hour bike ride with a target pace or heart rate. The Glasses aren't replacing your watch, they're just making interaction faster. For some people, this will be huge. For others, it'll be something they never touch. But the fact that it exists tells us who Meta is listening to, and just when your brain starts to categorize firmware 21 as mostly fitness and camera stuff, the update shifts direction again, this time into music, and this part is strange. In the best way, Meta introduces something called Soundtrack Your World with Meta AI and Spotify. The idea here is simple to describe, but wild to think about. The glasses can now recommend and play music from Spotify based on what you're looking at. You can say, "Hey Meta, play a song to go with my view," and it uses the camera to inform that recommendation. This feature is currently available only in English and only with Spotify. If you use YouTube Music like I do, you're out of luck for now. But even so, this is one of those features that makes you stop and ask yourself how often you'd actually use it. Would you use it walking through a city, standing on a beach, sitting in a cafe? Or is this one of those things that's fascinating to test but hard to integrate into daily life? That's the suspense here. It sounds futuristic, but its real-world usefulness isn't obvious yet, and that makes it interesting. At the same time, Meta expands music app support for more European languages. You can now control music using French, German, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. This applies to apps like Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Shazam. Still no YouTube Music, which remains frustrating, especially for YouTube Premium users. But this expansion does matter. It signals that Meta is pushing these glasses toward broader global usability, not just English-speaking tech enthusiasts. And then we arrive at the last major addition in firmware 21, voice shortcuts. But here's the twist, this feature is not for Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 users. It's for Oakley Meta Vanguard users. Voice shortcuts allow certain commands to be triggered without saying, "Hey Meta." Instead, a single word can activate actions, especially during workouts when paired with a Garmin device. This tells us two things very clearly. First, Meta is segmenting features based on use cases. Second, they're testing different interaction models on different hardware. It's subtle, but important. Ray-Ban Meta glasses are positioned as everyday wearables. Oakley Meta glasses are positioned as performance tools. Firmware 21 reinforces that split rather than blurring it. And now, after walking through all of these updates, there's a quiet moment where everything starts to come together. Because individually, none of these features completely redefine the glasses. But together, they paint a picture. A camera that's gaining more creative control. Audio that reacts to context. Fitness data that talks back. Sharing that happens after the moment, not before. And AI that's becoming less of a novelty and more of a layer that ties everything together. But the real question, the one that matters most, is this. How many of these features actually change how you use the glasses day to day? Which ones stick, and which ones fade after a few tries? That's where the next part comes in. Because now that we've laid out what's officially new, it's time to talk about what I'm personally most interested in testing, where this update could quietly fall apart, and which features might actually become the reason you reach for these glasses instead of your phone. So now that we've laid out all the official updates in firmware 21, I finally got some hands-on time with the Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 glasses to see how these features actually behave in real life. And let me tell you, there's a lot more nuance than what the release notes suggest. I wanted to approach this like I normally do with my glasses. Filming, walking, commuting, even running short distances to see how well everything holds up. And that's where the suspense starts, because some of these features work exactly as you'd hope, while others, well, they reveal their quirks. Let's start with Hyperlapse mode, because this is probably the most intriguing addition. Hands-free, up to 30 minutes, automatically speeding up your video into a smooth, shareable clip. It sounds perfect for anyone who wants to document their day or a trip without holding a camera. But here's the catch. The Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 is a Wayfarer-style frame, not a sports-focused Oakley. So when I tried it walking around a busy street or climbing stairs, there's noticeable movement in the footage. It doesn't ruin the video, but it's not the super stable cinematic shot you might imagine. The AI does a decent job smoothing things out, but the real suspense is when you tilt your head or look quickly to the side. Hyperlapse can produce some slightly jittery sequences. And that's where testing in real-world situations becomes crucial. Now, Contrast that with slow motion. You can now record up to a minute of slow motion footage hands-free. For me, this was the fun part because I could film drops of water, a bird landing on a bench, or a coffee cup spill without ever touching my phone. The enhanced dramatic effect the firmware notes mention isn't like adding filters. It just makes the playback smoother and emphasizes motion naturally. It's subtle but noticeable when you compare normal recording to slow motion playback. And just like Hyperlapse, this feature works best when the lighting is decent. Low light slow motion is still tricky, which is expected because the glasses don't magically add extra sensors. There's still small cameras embedded in your frame. Next up is adjustable stabilization, which honestly caught me off guard and how much it impacts the field of view. Essentially, the stabilization works by cropping slightly and then using gyro data to smooth your movements. So, if you increase stabilization, the footage is smooth, but you lose a tiny bit of peripheral view. Reduce it, and you see a wider frame but more jitter. What's exciting here is the suspense. You actually get to choose depending on the situation. Are you running across a trail or sitting still in a cafe? It's not just an on-off switch, this is real control over the final look of your video. I spent a good hour testing this while commuting, and it's wild how a subtle adjustment changes whether a clip feels cinematic or just shaky phone footage. And then comes the social side of firmware. 21 sharing directly to Instagram or Facebook. Stories. Previously, you had to know you were about to post. Now you can shoot first, decide later. The suspense here is in timing. You can say, "Hey Mita, share last video to Instagram," but it only works for the very last clip. I tested it several times, and it feels incredibly convenient if you just captured a perfect moment. But if you forget or shoot multiple clips, you have to remember exactly which clip you want to share. So it's brilliant for spontaneous moments. But there's a tiny learning curve. Now let's pivot to fitness, which is subtle but fascinating. The Garmin and Strava integration works exactly as the update describes. I connected my Meta Gen 2 to Garmin, went for a short jog, and the glasses automatically recognized my pace and distance. That's pretty cool in itself, but here's the suspense. The auto capture feature that adds stats overlays is a little too aggressive at times. If your stride is inconsistent or you stop briefly, the glasses will sometimes trigger a clip mid-walk. It's not broken, it's just unpredictable. I had a short burst of video where I had to manually crop because the glasses caught a moment I didn't intend to share. Still, it's a step forward in blending wearable AI with real-world movement. Then comes Soundtrack Your World with Spotify. And I'll admit, this feature is intriguing and slightly weird. You literally ask the glasses to play music based on your view. I tried it walking through a park, looking at flowers, trees, and passing strangers. Sometimes the track matched the vibe perfectly, like calm acoustic for flowers, upbeat electronic for motion. Other times it was completely unrelated, jarring, but still kind of fun. The suspense here isn't whether it works, but whether it works in a way you actually want to use every day. It's playful, almost like the glasses are experimenting with your mood. And yes, this is limited to Spotify in English. So if you're a YouTube music user like me, you're sidelined for now. One of the more subtle but important changes in firmware. 21 is the language expansion for music control. French, German, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, now you can speak commands in these languages. I tested French and it worked flawlessly, just like English. This opens up global usability and confirms Meta is thinking beyond the early adopter market. It's not flashy, but it quietly makes the glasses more practical for a wider audience. Finally, the update notes mention voice shortcuts, but here's the suspenseful twist. This is not available for Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2. It's only for Oakley Meta Vanguard paired with Garmin. That immediately tells you Meta is experimenting with interaction models on different hardware. It also means the Gen 2 remains more of an everyday wearable, less for athletes. More for casual use, filming, music, and AI features. But it also sets the stage for future updates where some of these experimental features might trickle down. The suspense is in waiting to see what sticks and what evolves over time. So after a few days of testing, firmware 21, here's where things get really interesting. Hyperlapse and slow motion are fun. Adjustable stabilization gives you control over your footage. Social sharing is smoother than ever, and AI-driven music is quirky but cool. Fitness integration is helpful if you already have compatible devices, but auto capture requires some patience. And while voice shortcuts aren't on Ray-Ban yet, the overall direction of firmware 21 hints at how Meta is slowly turning these glasses into a multi-purpose wearable. But here's the big question. Are these updates enough to make you grab your Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 over your phone for recording, music, or fitness tracking? That's what the final part of this deep dive will explore. Because seeing these features in the wild, hearing how they perform hands-on, and noticing the quirks is what separates a marketing spec sheet from actual experience. Alright, so we've gone through all the firmware 21 updates. We've tested Hyperlapse, slow motion, stabilization, Spotify interactions, fitness integration, and social sharing. Now it's time to talk about what all of this actually means in real life, because let's be honest, features look great on paper. But when you're out in the real world wearing Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 glasses, things get interesting. And there's a lot to unpack, so buckle up because this is where the suspense really kicks in. First, let's start with Hyperlapse. Hands-free, 30-minute clips sound like a dream, especially for city explorers or nature walks. I tested it walking through busy streets, a coffee shop, and even a short bike ride. The footage looks smooth in most scenarios. But here's the twist. When you make sudden head movements or track fast-moving subjects, you can actually see slight jitters. Not game-breaking, but enough to remind you that you're wearing glasses. And not a full gimbal setup. The suspense here is in the unpredictability. 1 second your footage is cinematic, the next it feels slightly shaky, but it's still shareable and fun, which is exactly what Meta seems to aim for. Approachable, practical, and slightly experimental. Next, slow motion. 1 minute of hands-free. Slow motion is surprisingly effective. Filming leaves falling, coffee spilling, or even a dog jumping in the park looks really good. The enhanced dramatic effect is subtle, but noticeable. It doesn't overdo it like some smartphone filters. The suspense is that you can create professional-looking clips without any tripods or setups, but only if you have decent light. Low light, slow motion, not so much. So it's a little reminder that these glasses are wearable tech-first camera. Second. Now, adjustable stabilization. This is where the real control comes in. If you max stabilization, your footage is buttery smooth, but crops slightly, reducing peripheral view. Reduce stabilization, and you get a wider angle but more natural jitter. I tried both while walking on uneven sidewalks and climbing stairs. And it's fascinating to see how your brain notices subtle shifts in perspective. The suspense here is knowing that you can manipulate your footage in ways you'd normally need editing software for, but right from the glasses themselves. Social sharing in firmware 21 is much improved. You can share the last video to Instagram or Facebook stories after recording. Super convenient for spontaneous moments. But the suspense is in timing. If you shoot multiple clips, you have to be very conscious of which is last. A bit of a learning curve, but once you get it, it's incredibly handy. I tested it on a busy street and it works reliably, which is impressive for voice-activated posting. Fitness integration is subtle but clever. Auto capture works if you connect Garmin, Apple Health, or Strava. I went for a short jog, and the glasses automatically captured clips based on pace and distance. Sometimes it misfires, like starting a clip when I slowed down, but that's the trade-off of wearable AI making decisions in real time. The suspense is that these glasses are slowly learning to anticipate your movements, but they're not perfect. Yet, still, for someone who wants hands-free workout documentation, this is a neat trick. Now, the Spotify AI feature, play a song to go with my view, is weirdly fun. Walking through a park, I got calm acoustic tracks when looking at trees. Upbeat electronic near a street. It's not always perfect, but it's playful, and it demonstrates the experimental edge of these glasses. The suspense is in guessing what it will play next and whether it fits your mood. I wouldn't use it every day, but it's a glimpse into a future where wearables respond to your environment. Language expansion is quiet but important. Controlling music in French, German, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese works flawlessly. This doesn't feel flashy, but it's practical for travelers or multilingual households. Firmware 21 subtly makes these glasses more usable worldwide, without you even noticing until you try it. And finally, what about limitations? Voice shortcuts aren't on Ray-Ban Gen 2. They're Oakley only. Hyperlapse can jitter on fast movements. Music features are Spotify exclusive. Slow motion is light dependent. Stabilization affects field of view. These are not flaws, they're just real-world boundaries that you need to be aware of. The suspense here is in balancing expectations. These glasses are versatile, but they're still wearable tech first. Camera second, AI assistant third. So after 3 months and now firmware 21, here's the verdict. Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 glasses are not perfect. They never claim to be, but they're surprisingly capable for day-to-day use. Hyperlapse and slow motion are fun and practical. Stabilization is a useful tool. Social sharing is seamless for quick content. And the AI interactions, while quirky, show the potential of wearable intelligence. The glasses are lightweight, unobtrusive, and still look like regular wayfarers, which is key. And the best part? Firmware 21 actually makes them feel smarter, not just more complicated. The suspenseful takeaway. These glasses are a glimpse into the future of wearables, a real tool for creators, commuters, casual users, and tech enthusiasts alike. Not perfect, sometimes unpredictable, but always interesting. They reward experimentation, patience, and curiosity. And if you've been sitting on the fence, this real-world testing shows you exactly what you're getting and what you're not. So, if you want my final advice, try these if you want a camera on your face that actually doubles as headphones, a micro AI assistant, and a hands-free media hub. Firmware 21 adds real polish, but the quirks make it fun and unpredictable. And for content creators, the combination of hyperlapse, slow motion, and AI-assisted posting is something you really can't replicate with a phone alone. Thanks for sticking with me through this long dive into firmware 21 and the Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 experience. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit subscribe. Leave a comment telling me which feature you test first. And check out my other Meta Glasses videos for behind-the-scenes tips. Trust me, some of the quirks and surprises I found will make you rethink what wearable tech can do. Remember, this isn't just a review, it's a hands-on story of how these glasses interact with real life. And that's the kind of insight, spec sheet can give. The adventure isn't over. It's just the beginning of seeing where smart glasses will go next.